What if the weirdest weapons in human history are exactly what your fantasy world is missing? Weapons that don't just kill, but reshape the way a character thinks, fights, and survives. After 25 years of writing fantasy, I've learned that originality doesn't come from inventing everything. It comes from knowing what's already been forgotten. So in this video, I'm going to show you 7 real-world weapons so bizarre they'll instantly add tension and uniqueness to your fight scenes, how each one can help you unlock new world-building and magic system ideas, and how to choose the right one for your story based on tone, culture, and power dynamics. To see how that works in action, watch what happens when a sword stops acting like a sword. Picture this, your hero enters a silent arena. No armor, no shield. Just a belt of coiled metal hanging from their hip. The opponent laughs until that belt snaps to life, whipping out with a snap that cracks dirt and sends dust flying. Every crack suddenly is a threat here. Every swing could slice you across the face or wrap around your wrist and pull the weapon from your hand. The crowd doesn't cheer anymore, they flinch, because this isn't a duel, it's a dance with a serpent made of steel. The Urumi originated in South India, most notable in the martial arts of Kalari Payadu. It's made from thin, flexible strips of metal, usually steel, attached to a hilt like a sword, but coiled up like a whip when not in use. Some had multiple blades, 3, 5, even more, making them incredibly hard to control. You don't draw an Urumi, you unleash it, and once it's moving, it doesn't stop until you do. But that's also why it faded out. The Urumi is as dangerous to its wielder as it is to the enemy. One misstep and it'll slice back toward the user. It takes years of training just to avoid self-injury, let alone master it. That's why today, outside of martial demonstrations, it's mostly retired. If you want a villain to feel instantly otherworldly, or a rogue who fights with speed, precision, and unpredictability, then this is your tool. And if you're looking for more tools like this to sharpen your story, I send out weekly tips to over 850 serious fantasy writers, helping them plan crucial moments, refine the world building, and finally finish the books they care about. Links in the description below. Moving on, unpredictability doesn't have to mean chaos like we've just seen. Sometimes it's about precision, with a twist. You can think of the next weapon as a triple threat: visual signature, tactical flexibility, and cultural storytelling. Visually, they are striking, literal metal rings worn on the body, like jewelry with teeth, in a fantasy world that already sells the character before they speak. After all, no one forgets the fighter who slices through enemies and then slides a weapon back onto the wrist. The chakram comes from India, specifically from Sikh warriors of the Punjab region. They were often worn stacked on the arms or turban, both as weapons and as a statement of readiness. Crafted from steel or brass, the outer edge was razor sharp, while the inner ring stayed smooth for easier handling. Some were small enough to be thrown like a disc, others were large enough to use two-handed in melee. Functionally, they blur roles. They're ranged and melee. You can throw one across a canyon or hook it into someone's armor up close. That's rare. Most weapons don't offer reach, stealth, and speed in one package. And they weren't just battlefield tools. They were used in martial arts training, ceremonies, and even spiritual symbolism. This circular form representing unity and infinity carried meaning beyond the blade. But that shape also made it hard to sheath or store like a sword, which is part of why you rarely see chakrams in modern use outside of demonstration and display. It takes training to throw them safely and even more to make the return worthwhile. But what really sets chakrams apart is what they suggest about the world. A society that uses circular weapons might value fluidity over brute force. Their philosophy might prize control, motion, and precision, training dancers with blades rather than brute warriors. When you write a character with a chakram, you're saying something about how they move and where they come from. But not every fighter strikes from a distance. Some close the gap fast and make it personal. The next weapon on the list doesn't just cut, it mauls, and it does so without a warning. Imagine a foreign diplomat entering a palace under strict rules. No visible weapons allowed. He bows, smiles, speaks with calm respect. To the guards, he is no threat. Then in a single motion he lunges. His hand rakes across the captain's chest and blood sprays before anyone sees a blade. That's the danger of the Bagnak. It doesn't look like much, but when it strikes, it's already too late. Historically, the Bagnak comes from the Indian subcontinent as well, with roots in regions like Maharashtra. The name literally means tiger claws, and that's exactly what it was meant to mimic. 4 to 5 sharp blades curved forward from a base blade worn over the knuckles or palm, designed to rip skin and muscle rather than slice cleanly. It wasn't made for honor duels or battlefield use. It was made for ambushes, assassinations, and silence. Some say the Maratha warrior Shivaji used a bagnak to kill the general Afzal Khan during a peace meeting, hiding it in his hand before striking. Maybe it really happened, maybe it's just a legend, but either way, it shows exactly what this weapon was made for, something close, sudden, and personal. Here's what makes this so useful in fantasy writing. It lets your violence hide in plain sight. Whether it's an assassin, a street thief, or a priest who secretly protects the realm, this weapon says one thing loud and clear: I was never not armed. And unlike bulky swords or slow-loading crossbows, the bagnak doesn't demand reach or strength, it demands intimacy. The closer your character gets, the more dangerous they become. Paired with chaos magic, and things get even messier. Each slash might burn instead of cut, or create illusions, or backfire entirely. You can build a whole magic style around randomness that feels like animal instinct, fast, risky, and primal. But not every culture hides its deadliest tools. Some put them on display. 3 blades spinning through the air, forged for royalty alone. The Kapinga is built around a single principle: form means status. This wasn't a weapon for just anyone, it was forged for nobility and owned by elites, crafted not just to kill, but to say something before the fight even started. You can break it down into 3 narrative levers. First we have shape. 3 curved blades flare out from the core. That means no clean stab, only unpredictable angles, brutal tearing, and absolutely no casual blocking. Then there is symbol. In Sande culture, a Kapinga wasn't just carried into battle, it was part of marriage ceremonies. A symbol of honor and lethal skill. That makes it world-building gold. And lastly, we have selectivity. Only certain warriors were allowed to wield it. That exclusivity makes it perfect for hierarchical systems. You don't earn this weapon, you're granted it. Historically, the Kapinga was used by the Sande people of Central Africa, particularly in regions of modern-day Sudan and the Democratic Republic of Congo. It wasn't just thrown, it was presented. Carried by professional warriors in the service of kings, it often served more as a mark of elite identity than a day-to-day tool of war. Each Kapinga was forged with craftsmanship and symbolism in mind, often featuring engraved patterns or unique blade shapes to reflect the individual or tribe. They were balanced for short-range throwing, typically carried into battle in multiples, and always retrieved afterward, much like a badge of office. You can use that model in your writing to create tension without even needing a fight. Give your villain one of these, and now every character knows they're facing someone the culture itself treats like royalty. But what if you need to do more than kill? What if the whole point is not killing? What if the goal is capture? Think of the Makwawit as a chainsaw hidden in a baseball bat. It looks crude at first glance, just a wooden club lined with black stone. But obsidian cuts sharper than steel. When Spanish conquistadors first saw it in action, they reported horses being decapitated in one swing. That's not elegance, that's blood-soaked precision. This is your tool for a culture that doesn't romanticize war. A civilization that uses combat to deliver victims, not eliminate enemies. Because here's the hidden twist. The Makwawit was often used to maim, not kill, to subdue and carry enemies away, alive for ritual sacrifices. Used by the Aztecs and other Mesoamerican civilizations, the Makwawit was a brutal hybrid of club and blade. Its wooden core was inserted with rows of razor-sharp obsidian flakes, so sharp they could perform surgical cuts, yet fragile enough to shatter if mishandled. Warriors trained to strike with flat sweeps and slashing blows, not to pierce, but to disable and overwhelm. That changes the entire logic of combat. Battles aren't just about victory, they're about harvesting. They're tactical, horrifying, and strategic in a way most readers aren't used to. The visual alone tells a story here. Unlike polished steel or elegant bows, the Makwawit looks raw, elemental, violent, and ceremonial. You can bake this into your world with an ecological magic system, for example. Maybe each obsidian tooth channels blood into the ground, waking something below. Or maybe wounds inflicted by this weapon feed energy to a god who punishes waste, so the more brutal the better. The point is, when your weapon encourages restraint in the name of cruelty, the story stops being about who's stronger and starts being about what's worth sparing. But having said that, speed changes everything. Because the next weapon wasn't made to display status or honor gods. It was built to fire fast and change what reload means forever. Centuries before anyone fired a musket, Chinese generals were already fielding squads of crossbowmen armed with a weapon that could fire up to 10 bolts in rapid succession without ever stopping to reload. The Chukuno wasn't elegant, it wasn't powerful either, but it worked like a panic button. Just keep cranking and everything in front of you gets hit. And that's exactly how it earned its place in history. Not as a sniper's tool, but as a floodgate. You didn't need to be strong or accurate, just scared enough to pull the lever. Its design was brilliantly simple. A sliding magazine held bolts above a horizontal bow, and with each forward and back crank of the lever, the mechanism dropped a bolt, drew the string, and released. You didn't aim, you blanketed. It wasn't about hitting a target, it was about denying territory. Some records link it to Zhuge Liang of the Three Kingdoms period, though its earliest forms predate him. Either way, it became known as the Zhuge crossbow in later eras, a weapon more psychological than tactical. Now picture that in a fantasy world. Soldiers lined up on castle walls, cranking their weapons like wind-up toys, firing wave after wave of low-damage magical bolts. This isn't a weapon for heroes, it's a tool for systems, for bureaucracy. For a world where power isn't special anymore, it's mass-produced. But not every weapon was made for a crowd like this. Some were crafted for control one-on-one, no room for error, and no blood unless something goes wrong. You see, some weapons end fights. The Man-Catcher preserves the consequences. It wasn't built to kill, it was built to capture. It was a long-handled polearm with forked prongs designed to pin nobles alive. Because sometimes killing isn't just unnecessary, it's the worst thing that could happen. When the stakes involve ransom, leverage, or political fallout, death is useless and alive is power. The design of the Man-Catcher was coldly pragmatic. Two semicircular prongs mounted on a pole, often with inward-facing spikes or spring-loaded jaws to trap a neck or limb. Guards could unhorse a rider or restrain a struggling noble from a distance, close enough to control, but far enough to avoid being stabbed or cursed. In late medieval Europe, it was used during riots, arrests, or siege breaches. Not against common soldiers, but against people whose death would be inconvenient. That core idea, restraint as a strategy, gives you so much as a rider. Picture a patrol tasked with capturing runaways, or a rebellion that only succeeds if the enemy lives to be shown off in chains. The Man-Catcher turns your fight scenes into chess matches. There's a certain brutality in the restraint itself here. This wasn't gentle, it was humiliating. Consider the image of a commander being dragged by the throat, still alive, still struggling. That's its own kind of power, and in the right world, it's even worse than death. It's perfect when you want the tension of combat without the finality of death, or when you want to show that killing would be the easy option, but the story needs a harder path. Whether it's an elite guard or a strategic officer or a character trying to earn clemency, this weapon says you don't win by swinging harder, you win by outmaneuvering. Now, if picking the wrong weapon can flatten a whole fight scene though, imagine what a weak outline does to your entire novel. So watch this video here next where I'll show you how to outline your fantasy novel using just 15 scenes, each one built to carry real emotional weight, real pressure, and real transformation.